I mean, it's so important for any individual to be conscious of where they are financially. You know, for me personally, when I moved over to America, I had to have the savings behind me to enable me to have the luxury to be able to do that big move.
Right.
And throughout my life, you know, you have to plan for your life. If you don't, you're going to run out of money at some point. So to be, you know, savvy, to look at options, to weigh up what options are available is just, it's an absolute must as far as I'm concerned.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alliance Group podcast. And we have Miss Pippa Secker from Palm Beach, Florida, here in Stratton Studios with us today. Welcome, Miss Pippa.
Thank you very much, Samuel.
It has been, we've been really looking forward to this visit to have you in. You're just such a fascinating character. You have such an amazing story. And we've been looking forward to having you in to kind of get into that. First of all, Pippa, you're a little bit different, as people might be able to tell. You are from England.
I certainly am.
So born in England, you've been in America for roughly 20 years, is that correct?
Absolutely, 20 years.
So tell me, you had this really interesting story as we were talking before the podcast about how you fell in love with America. And it was during a trip to the Magic Kingdom when you were a kid. Is that correct?
It was partly that, and partly my rather eccentric, fabulous auntie who I had on a pedestal. So,
Yeah.
Well, when I was growing up, where I lived actually, in Norfolk, in Norwich, there was an American air base, and she'd go off to the dances, and she met a pilot, fell in love, and moved to Denver, Colorado. So as I was growing up, each year she'd return back to England for her holiday, and all of a sudden she'd start to have this big American accent. And I had her on this pedestal anyway, so I was like, oh, my Auntie Julie, she's so cool. So that was my first influence. And then the second was when my parents took my brother and I to Disney World. I arrived at age 15 and I was like, oh my goodness, Americans, they're so friendly, they're outgoing, they talk to you, they're confident, they're lively, they're kind, and there's no clouds in the sky and it's not raining, and the water's turquoise and it's warm and I can swim, and Mickey Mouse lives here. So there was a lot of first influences that really kind of instilled that love of America for me.
Yeah. And so, like, was it a sort of thing where you were, you know, made up your mind at that point, like, I'm going to be back, this is what I want to do? Or did it just kind of work out? How did you end up actually in adulthood coming to America?
That's a great question. So as with everything in life, it's timing. In my case, from the age of 15, as I got a little bit older, became into adulthood, I then kept returning to America, probably mainly to Miami. And each time I returned, I was like, oh, I really love this place. And then it was the case of when I got divorced from my husband. At that point in time in England, obviously I wasn't in a relationship. I'd just sold my business. And I thought, well, you know what, at this point in my life, if I don't go and scratch that itch right now, I'm going to get stuck in England, because invariably I'll get into another relationship or I'll start another business and I'm going to be stuck in this horrible weather for the rest of my life.
You need to get back to those turquoise waters, right?
That's right.
You know, one of the things that I think is really fascinating about you is just your personality. And you have this gift with people. One of those that you actually utilized that gift in a previous career as a matchmaker. You actually kind of fell into this career, something you were very, very good at, where you would actually play matchmaker and you would help people find love. And I think that a lot of the talents that you use to be really, really good at that are now serving you in your career as a financial advisor. So talk to me a little bit, and talk to our viewers a little bit about what is it that you loved about matchmaking, and what is it that made you really, really good at that?
Okay. So I actually fell into matchmaking. I'm very fortunate in that I've always been able to spot synergies and see, oh, I bet those two would get on. And
Right.
so in England, just living my life, I'd actually made 4 matches, 4 different marriages, just through introducing friends.
You had 4 girlfriends.
4 girlfriends, 4 different guy friends, 4 marriages.
That's
They were all very
incredible.
grateful, and but I did it for the love of it. It wasn't a business. It wasn't anything like that. It was just because I was like, oh, she's really going to like him. I bet they'll get on. And
Right.
they did. So I have a very good eye for it, and so when I moved over to America. That's really where I concentrated more on that because, well, initially, how I got to America is quite interesting because after I'd realised, okay, now is the time, if I'm going to jump and try out America, now is the time to do that. Because, of course, if you're visiting for 2 weeks here and there, that's all very well. You're going to have a great holiday. But it's not enough time to, really help you decide if you're going to uproot your life and move across the world.
Right.
So. As a Brit, you can come over and spend 3 months here on a tourist visa. I had some money behind me by then. I was like, okay, well, let's go and do that. Let's see how it goes. I arrived in Miami, hired a rental for 3 months. Didn't know anyone, just one person, in fact. And so, as one does, or as one did back then, before it had the bad reputation, I placed an ad on Craigslist.
Yeah, this is amazing. Craigslist.
British woman, just moved to Miami, looking to make friends and meet people, as you do. And
I'm just amazed that worked out, I mean, because like if I saw a British woman, I'd be like, this is a scam, something's going on.
Is it a Russian bride?
Exactly. But it worked out, and you actually had somebody that reached out to you, right?
Yes,
From
yes.
this ad.
It wasn't what I was expecting. I had a scout from a high-end matchmaker that approached me. And she said, look, I've got some of the most eligible bachelors on my books. I'd like to meet up with you and interview you and see if you might be a good fit. Well, what did I have to lose? You know, I thought, well, I know matchmaking works because I've done it.
I'm 4 for 4, back home, so yeah.
So I met up with her and proceeded to tell her what I was looking for in my ideal match. And she then proceeded to put me out on 3 different dinner dates with 3 lovely gentlemen, none of which even remotely matched what I was looking for. But I took the opportunity. I love people. I'd sat, I talked to them, and I basically interviewed all 3 of them. And I said, what did they charge you? What were your expectations?
Right.
How has the job been that they've done? And what's your overall experience? And at the end of those 3 dinner dates, I was like, well, it's a non-brainer. I don't want to live here. If I'm going to live here, I need to do it officially. I need to move over. I need to get a visa. And I need to work because I need to earn money.
Right.
So at that point, that was it. I said, right, okay, I am going to set up my matchmaking business, Synergy. And I applied for my E2 investors visa, moved over, and then started doing it myself.
And so, a matchmaker, you started obviously working in some of those more upper income type circles, right? You had a matchmaking service for 10 years. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
So, putting people together. One thing that you were talking about that you think that made you really successful was the attention to detail that you had when it came to interviewing the people who were signing up and really getting to know who they were, what type of person they were, what they were truly looking for, and not glazing over that step. Really making sure that you knew who this person was so that you could make the right matches. And that attention to detail, that was a big part of your success in the matchmaking industry.
That's absolutely pivotal, in fact. So the experience that I had was that the business model with that particular agency was that the man would pay for the matches, typically between about $25,000 and $100,000 a year. And in exchange, they'd get to meet a lot of nice-looking girls, have nice dates, and but that was really it. But it never had a lot of chance of success because the matchmaker didn't care about what the woman wanted. It's got to be evenly matched. So when I embarked on my own business, I thought, well, I'm going to do a good job of this. So I actually made my recruiting process and my profiling of each client very, very thorough, to the extent where you cover all the thorny issues. What's your opinion on having children? How about if your partner already has children? How important is education? Does your partner need to be well educated? Do they need to have their own business? Do they need freedom to travel? All of those real key elements that are vital if you're going to make a successful match. And in doing so, I found out that I got a great success. I had a great reputation within the industry because I went the extra step. I mean, I had in there also deal breakers. What drives you nuts? What is a no-no for you?
Right.
And once you've got all of that out of the way, the chance of it working is so much more.
It's something that I think it's serving you in your financial services career. That experience, which I'm sure was just a fascinating experience. I'm sure people love to hear about it and talk to you about it.
Yes.
The matchmaking career that you had and that very successful business that you built. But you've always been kind of a financially savvy woman and somebody who was curious about and educated herself in finances and the world of finance and business. And how is it that you first started making that transition from a matchmaking business into the world of financial services and life insurance and living benefits and things like that?
Because they are quite different businesses, let's face it.
Very much.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important for any individual to be conscious of where they are financially. For me personally, when I moved over to America, I had to have the savings behind me to enable me to have the luxury to be able to do that big move.
Right.
And throughout my life, you have to plan for your life. If you don't, you're going to run out of money at some point. So to be, savvy, to look at options, to weigh up what options are available is just, it's an absolute must as far as I'm concerned. So how I transitioned from matchmaking into life insurance was very simple. I went along to my bank one day and I said, look, I've got this nest egg, I've got some money here, it's just come out of a CD and I'm looking for another investment. So, what are your options right now? Please tell me what's on the table. And then what happened is they said, well, have you looked into life insurance? And I said, no, why would I do that?
Right.
By that point, I did have my daughter. And they told me, obviously, the benefits of it protecting her when I passed. I got all of that. But as an investment, I hadn't really considered it like that.
You just thought of life insurance as something you have to buy to protect your family. And, but not...
If you love your family. I mean, if you don't, it doesn't matter, does it? Let's be honest. But I had no idea that the policies these days, they're night and day compared to what they used to be like. So when you take an IUL, Indexed Universal Life Policy these days, you don't just get protection for your loved ones, but from the moment you're insured, well, within 30 days actually, you get living benefits. So that means at any point in your life, if you're to have a medical emergency, how many people do you know that have had cancer, a stroke, heart attack, been in a big car accident? The policy unlocks and it instantly covers all the medical bills, and we know how expensive they are in America.
Oh my goodness.
And loss of earnings, which is pivotal. So I thought, okay, well, that's another great benefit, but I'm looking for something that will make me money.
Right.
And that's when I heard about what an amazing and incredible tool a policy can be if it's set up correctly.
With those tax advantages that come only with permanent life insurance, there's very few ways that you can actually create cash value that grows tax deferred and then can be accessed tax free. I mean, it's Roth IRAs, it's municipal bonds, and it's permanent life insurance. That's it.
Yeah.
So, people have a lot of misconceptions about life insurance, and this is when you started to kind of uncover and get to some truths that you didn't realize were there about life insurance.
It's like anything in life. If you educate yourself, if you're open-minded and educate. I mean, for me, it was like the light went on. As soon as, my banker ran the illustration, I clearly saw, oh my goodness, if I set this up, why would I have a 401k? If I set this up, it's going to provide me a great return, cash accumulation. I can then build in a total retirement for myself, tax-free. A 401k isn't tax-free.
That's right.
It's just, it's an incredible vehicle. And that's the big thing. It's like people don't realize it's not just for when you die.
So George Tzikis, one of our very, very dear friends at Alliance Group, he was pivotal in kind of helping you, once you became curious about this industry and this as a career, George kind of helped you get into this industry. Is that right?
Yeah, actually it is. Well, I'd already done my exams. As soon as I found out about this policy and the strength in it, I was just like, well, this is an absolute non-brainer, and this is where I want to spend my time. Because what I'd found with the matchmaking is, as much as I loved it and enjoyed it, it could be fickle, because people can come to you and they're not emotionally ready,
Right.
they have unrealistic expectations. So even though I'd made a lot of matches and enjoyed it, with this was solid. This was, and
Everybody needs it.
everybody needs it, and it's so much benefit. I thought, well, it's going to give me so much more pleasure helping people get protected and earn a good retirement and all of the benefits that I want to spend my time doing that. So I'd done my exams already, and let me tell you, having not been in college for many years, it was not easy, but I got through it, and I was just starting into it. And then as luck would have it, I was having a small party at home, and my neighbours were coming along, and they said, look, we've got some good friends in the building, George and his wife, can we bring them? And I said, of course you can, bring them in.
Wow.
The rest is history. We got talking. I told him that's what I'd just
That you
done.
had just finished
Just
getting your
finished the
wow,
exams, and
that's-
I wanted to get into doing life insurance, and guess what? That was his industry. So the stars aligned.
And that's how we Alliance Group got connected to Pippa.
That's right. And the wing woman,
That's
my
right,
business.
the wing woman. So
Yes.
absolutely love this, and it kind of goes along with this theme of what we've been talking about. It seems that you've been put here to help guide people and to help kind of whether it's in your previous matchmaking career, you have this skill, you have this amazing personality, you have this amazing personability that helps you connect to people in a very deep way, and you obviously built that in your matchmaking synergy business, but you've brought that into the financial services industry with the Wing Woman, which is your branding, and I think it's fantastic. So tell us why the Wing Woman?
Well, the wing woman, there's several reasons for that. Firstly, I have strong faith, and the wing woman for me really epitomizes someone that protects, somebody that you can trust, and that's what my passion and my calling is. It was given to me so clearly that I want to help educate people, look after families, look after their loved ones, help them build a good financial future. So, and I've been very blessed in my life because I do have good people skills. People trust me, they open up to me, and they see that I do them right, whether it be the matchmaking and now with the life insurance. I'm not going to steer somebody into a product that doesn't suit exactly what they need.
Right.
And it's a gift to me to be given that privileged scenario and position to be able to do that.
Yeah. So as you are having conversations, obviously, Palm Beach, very affluent area. There's, it's you're talking with people who generally have good incomes, good education, things like that. What are some of the things that you've been surprised about in working with these clients when it comes to their attitudes and beliefs about life insurance?
That's a great question. One of the things that really surprised me is when I was speaking, and it was typically clientele that were more privileged, had more, money to be able to invest. If they had a financial advisor, sometimes I'd come across, they'd come back to me and they'd say, oh, we've looked at the illustration, but my financial advisor says I don't need insurance, I can self-insure. And for me, I was like, that's crazy.
Why would you self-insure when you could have an insurance company? I never understood that.
Well, and here's the thing.
Self-insure basically means you can just absorb the loss from your savings.
Why would you? Why would you? But the biggest thing that I learned from that is that it wasn't typically perhaps it was the fault of the financial advisor, because they should have been more educated and know more. Because when a wealthy person buys an insurance policy, typically they don't need it, but why wouldn't you do it? But they're doing it for the coverage, to have themselves covered, all their medical bills, everything covered, right? But not only that, to be able to build cash accumulation. So whatever they wanted to pass on in their estate when they go, they can pass on 3 times the amount by having a life insurance policy.
Right.
And it's the cash accumulation.
Accumulation.
Thank you.
Early in the morning.
That it just performs so well.
Yeah.
But because they aren't aware of it, they just see it as life insurance, and it's so much more.
I never did understand that, the whole self-insure thing. I mean, what you're doing is you are leveraging. Why would you cover those things yourself? I mean, yes, technically, if you were to get a horrible, cancer diagnosis or something like that, you could afford any experimental treatment.
Yeah.
Yes, you could. This experimental treatment costs $300,000. Yes, you have money. You could go into your bank account or sell an investment, and you could pay $300,000 out of your. Yes, you can afford that. You could self-insure in that way, but why? Why would you do that when you could pay $150 a month and have a policy that will pay that for you, where you have, rather than your savings pay for that, have an insurance company.
Yeah.
You're insuring the risk. You're transferring the risk, right, from you to an insurance company.
And it's not coming out of your pocket.
Right.
And the other beautiful thing, Samuel, I had a client, and she bought a policy off me. She was about 72, and she bought a policy off me. She'd had it 2 or 3 years, and then she got a terminal cancer diagnosis and was told she had 6 months to live. Her policy was about $5 million, and she bought it to protect her daughter and her son. And with this particular case, I mean, it showed me so much how just incredible. It's a terrible scenario. We all know that. But her policy, when that happened, she came back to me and said, look, this has happened. And I said, okay, let's look at this. Your policy will unlock and pay you instantly $1.5 million to cover your medical. And she said to me, no, Pippa, I've decided I don't want to go through chemo. I've had a beautiful life. I'm not going to spend my last 6 months doing that. I've sat down with my daughter and my son, and we've decided we're going to tick off our bucket list. We're going to travel the world. They're going to take time off work. And that 1.5 million enabled her and her family to have the most beautiful last few months together. She lived for 8 months. They did everything they wanted instead of having a miserable time doing chemotherapy.
Instead of being sick, right.
And then when she did pass, after about 8 months, it unlocked the other 3.5 million, and her children benefited from that. So it's such an unbelievably, incredibly flexible product. Health insurance doesn't give you that. They'll fight you tooth and nail as to what they pay for and drag it all out.
That's very true. And what you're talking about there is one use of this policy. You obviously specialize in permanent cash value life insurance with your clients, but the story you just told, that was a living benefits and turned into a death benefit story. Yeah. That's one way that life insurance can protect. But if nothing had happened to her, if she had never gotten sick, you've got the whole cash value accumulation, the tax-free access. The thing that really is amazing about products, cash value life insurance and products like IUL that you work with your clients, is, as you're getting at, just the incredible versatility. How no matter what happens in your life, whether tragedy happens or sickness happens or nothing happens, it serves you throughout your life in all of these different scenarios.
And the other thing that, people have this misconception of, or they don't even know, the product is so flexible. Once you've got it set up, you're covered. Your family, your loved ones covered, and your health is covered. But if you need money 5, 10 years down the road, you can tap into your policy and take out the cash accumulation tax-free. Use it on whatever you want to. There's no restrictions. Pay it back in the policy, or don't if you don't want to, and then it just gets taken off the face value. It's just, and a lot of my clients will actually have me set it up as an investment vehicle. In some cases I've set it up and they've done it just purely to use it in that manner, obviously to protect their family as well.
Right.
But I've had scenarios where, when it works out correctly for their needs, I've structured it so that they end up taking out more than they've put in, and they've still got all the coverage.
Yeah.
That's
pretty incredible.
It's incredible.
One thing that you're very passionate about as well is IUL for kids.
Yes.
So you absolutely love this cash value, permanent cash value life insurance.
I do.
Being set up and max funded on the life of very young children and what that can do for kids going forward.
Yes. Your standard known investment for children is your 529 plan, which is great, and
I have one for Rowan and Crosby, in addition to my IULs.
And, parents will typically set that up, and it's a way for them to save so that they've got the money there for when the child goes to college. Well, guess what? My 11-year-old sings and dances. She probably isn't going to go to college. And
she's very talented. I did see a video of her earlier. She's incredible.
She is talented. She is. But, the thing is, as a parent, you don't know what your child's going to do. Look how fast the world is changing, for goodness sake, with AI and everything else. You just don't know. So with a 529 plan, if that money that has grown tax-free isn't spent on education, you don't get it out tax-free. You have to pay your tax.
Penalties and tax, yep.
Well, if you compare that to if you were to invest that same money into an IUL, not only does it grow tax-free, guess what? If the child doesn't go to college, they can spend that money on their first car, a starter home, a wedding, start a business, and they're protected for the whole of their life in case of any medical emergencies. There's no comparison.
It's just amazing how many boxes you check with that max funded IUL policy for a young child. You're checking the box for, of course, permanent life insurance with the living benefits. God forbid something happens. It's not why you're necessarily doing it. The focus is more on the cash value accumulation and the long-term financial vehicle that you're setting up for them. But it's nice to check those boxes as well, and make sure it's just, again, it goes back to the versatility. I think that IUL for kids is really where those policies shine the most, because they're just so powerful when they're put in place at such a young age.
Any parent that loves their kids is crazy not to set one up as young as possible. You can set one up for a 1-year-old. I saw a client I saw a client last week. I'm already thinking about next week. And I put together a proposal for them. They had $500 that they wanted to invest a month. It doesn't have to be that much. You can set it up for any amount. We can literally tailor a policy to suit any budget. But in this case, it was $500 a month. The child was 5, a little girl, 5 years old, Samantha, and the parents wanted to put him from age 5 to when she was 21. And their thought process was they wanted to provide a future for her, not for her to use it for her college, but to have it later on in her life. So that $500 a month, that works out at $6,000 a year. Over that period between 5 and 21, they'd put in, their total investment was $102,000. Policy paid off, all done. From day one, her life was covered for $1 million. If she was to have any medical emergencies, major emergencies like we talked about earlier, that policy unlocked 1.4 million for the whole of her life. So obviously she's not earning at the moment, but when she got, of working age, not only does she get all the medical bills covered, but loss of earnings. But here's the big thing. For that $102,000 that was invested by her parents that clearly loved her to have the foresight and do the due diligence to set this up for her, when she reached 60, she'd start taking an annual retirement out of there. And that retirement, if she only lived for the average living age for a female, which is 76, she will have taken out $3.2 million. I kid you not.
Isn't that amazing? The power of compound interest over a long period of time. If we set it up and let it do its thing, it's pretty incredible.
Well, it seems too good to believe, you know, but when I run the illustrations, I mean, it's so lovely to see people's faces. They're like, seriously? How can that be? And it's just literally because the cost of insuring a child is so much less because, of course, they're healthy, they haven't got ailments, no medical issues, and so they're very cheap to insure it. And then they've got the time for the policy to grow.
Yep.
So it's yeah.
Another thing that's very close to your heart, Pippa, that we were talking about is the charitable trust that could be set up with life insurance. You are you're very active in your church.
Yes.
And the charitable giving is something that you've really keyed on lately. Tell me about that.
Yes. So, I mean, in the Bible it says, you know, that we should tithe our first 10% of our earnings. I always enjoy, you know, giving into the contribution each Sunday, but that's personal to different people. You know, God says you should give with a grateful and giving heart, what you feel is right if you're feeling it, you know. It's by no means, you know, expected of you. And what I learned recently is one of my carriers actually offers a charitable donation matching scheme. So if you have a charity close to your mind, mine is my church, obviously.
Right.
But whatever it is, if it's child trafficked children, helping animals, cancer, whatever it is, you can, it's in your heart and you know that when you're going to pass, you want to leave a percentage of your estate to that charity. Be smart now. Set up a life policy, and whatever that amount that you deem in your mind that you want to give, you'll give 3 times as much. But not only that, I've got a carrier that will match up to $30,000
out of their pocket.
Out of their pocket as well, which is incredible because it means you get to give so much more. Life is about contribution and giving back. It really is. That's the juice of life.
It's really fantastic. We love our carriers and that they make things easy like this to be able to, you know, make sure that your beneficiaries are taken care of, the people that you need to know, but also make sure that those causes close to your heart are something where you can leave a legacy there as well. And I think that's really, really powerful. Pippa, it's been a fascinating conversation. We actually have plans in the studio to shoot a lot of social media material with you today. We're really excited about working with you, and it's been awesome having you here in Stratton Studios, and looking forward to your visit here in Atlanta.
Thank you so much, Samuel.
Thank you.